I know we said last week that this is going to be the start of something really exciting, and it is, but today we take that excitement another step further. As you can see, I'm plugged in with the GoPro from a POV point of view. I want you guys to not only be able to see this from more of an outward lens or an expanded lens, but now I want you to feel this session with me. So this is our football format from me, my perspective, where you can follow along. Disclaimer, and we'll put something up here on the screen. If you get dizzy easily, don't follow along too closely, but follow along closely. Okay, so as far as the setup today, a bit different than last week where we had more of an extensive session, which means longer rounds, a little bit more rest, and a few more stations to work within. Today, we have more of an intensive session, and we like to scale that from 0 to 10. And you'll see a full breakdown of this in the next slide coming up. But today is an intensive 8, so that would be more of a session that you line up maybe match day -3, match day -2 at the very, very latest point of your periodization plan, which is something we'll talk about again in a future session, in a future video. Now, as far as the focus, today's about ball mastery, positive manipulation of the ball, going through a bit of a circuit style session, as well as a separate station that will show you the different contact points that I'm using, the way I push, pull, roll, and manipulate the ball with some additional contact. So follow me this way, and we'll take just a quick view of the two stations that we have, our more expanded station here, and on the far side, a bit more of a condensed station that will allow us to transfer the technical points from that smaller area into the larger area here. Now, we're only going to go through 2 phases today, but we still have the same format. Practice rounds 1 and 2, direction 1 and 2. That's then followed by a point-based metric today, a point-based metric round, direction 1, direction 2. And then we'll cap it off with 2 competition rounds. Hopefully, especially with how sore I've been this week, we don't have to go into any double or nothing rounds because, look, we want to get these 2 phases done and be as efficient as possible. So you can stay right there, watch along, feel along, and we'll get right into the session. So activation, warm-up done. We're going to get into 4 progressional runs now. The first one, we'll stay at about 50 to 75% pace to build out the pattern. The last 2, we're pushing anywhere from 75%, that's run pace, up to your full 100% sprint. So follow along this way. We're going to go direction 1 first, which today is actually on the left side. Direction 2, we flipped it on purpose. I like to do it because I consider Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday your odd days of the week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, kind of your even days, going on the right side. Patterns are now locked in for both direction 1 and direction 2. So the practice rounds are done. We got a good sweat going on. So now we jump into the metric round. We'll do this after we go through, and we're going to call this our active recovery today with that master control station that then gets transferred right into our expanded master control plus end product finishing today. Now, first takeaway that I really want us to register, let this process, that we have to use full body application. If you notice with a lot of my movements, I'm not narrow and stiff. If you consider a line drawn from the top of your head between your feet, We call that your center axle. Try to keep that over top of the ball while utilizing upper body, almost like you're pushing air out the way with every turn, every disconnection, expanded touch, so that you're being a little bit more explosive. And then once we transfer this into a match setting, you can get away from pressure, whether it be on the ball or off the ball. So let's hit the metric round. We've got our shooting zones. This is our level 1 to start out. So we're looking for channels, and we'll go through the points on screen right now. So again, keep in mind, this is more of a raw training session. Look at my technical breakdowns, my kinetic body movement breakdowns. And that's where I go back, just like you should, and review my film. What type of movements were impacting a positive action versus maybe a technical error. So now that we're getting into this metric round where there is the end product, we have to be that much more hyper-focused on the movements. And then once we do this, with that repetitive nature, we'll start to get that organic feel or that natural production. So one thing that for sure felt minorly off in that last round, although we matched the metric score, yeah, it might have been mid-height, but I'm going to consider that a tie. If you noticed how my right arm movement was as I approached the shot, it drifted too far to the right, bringing my contact on the ball position slightly too far to the outside. Now, I can make up for that with a quick shift in my momentum and body weight, but I wasn't going for mid-height. I was going upper 90 in that case. Because my arm drifted, however, I couldn't get that clean, single leg, hip activated, kinetic movement and strike through the ball. But we're not far off. So that's a good start. Phase 1 is now done. We'll grab a quick rest, call this halftime, and hit phase 2. Now, don't get flustered when you have to data collect or scan and process all of this information. For me, I'm looking at turning points, space to attack into, transition areas. Sure, it might be static pressure with the dummies here and the mannequins, but it's still acting as if it's a boundary to prevent me from moving forward. But altogether, I'm processing this information, collecting all this data so I can make a proper technical action and make a tactical decision that I like to categorize more as like a plan A tactical decision, not resorting or falling back to a plan B. We want to go with our gut. We want to go with what information we processed. And that goes back to what we said previously with the clarity. If you have clarity, because you know what's going on around you, you will have much more confidence on the pitch. You'll have more composure on and off the ball. And then from there, you're just consistently growing, and you're growing into the game. Had a feeling that would happen. Double or nothing now, because you know I can't be complacent or go right into any extra football fitness. No soccer sprints today. So we've got one ball left. We're going to run it back with direction 2. If you noticed in the last 2 sequences, we were off by a fraction. But that can make or break the situation in the game. So right now, I'm embracing that pressure to go double or nothing to make the little fine-tuned fixes, whether it be a small plant foot change, more upper body incorporation. Maybe I had to scan a bit better, or being more purposeful, having more intent with your play, using this ball mastery topic. So if you notice, many times I'm not flicking the ball into direction. I'm letting the ball glide along. If I'm using a linear or straightforward pattern, along my pinky toe. If you notice, you could take a shot right down this way. My knee will stay over top of the center of the ball, right on top, to allow my toe to invert itself so I can fall into a natural step. So I'm letting the ball glide right along that sweet spot from the pinky toe right up towards the last lace line. Again, so I can push at the distance I want, at the speed that I want, at the angle that I want. But now I've got to bring that into the quantity. How many touches am I actually taking in this? Am I taking 1, 2, or 3 unnecessary touches, which will welcome unnecessary pressure? That's how we finish it up. So you probably heard my relief in the last clip, but that's what it's about. You've put in the effort, you've dominated, you've become more intentional with your play, and that's where it pays off. Embrace the pressure. And this is one of those bonus takeaways that I'll give you and leave you with today. Whenever you are faced with failure initially, that's where the most area for growth is. So don't fear failure, run towards it, because that's what I did at the end. And look, I scanned, used the right amount of quantity touches or the type of touches that I took, used upper body engagement. All those things collectively pulled together into one final combined technical and tactical setup. So next week, we're going to go into a partner session. This has all been individual up to this point. So look forward to that, because now we can start to add in, as we mentioned earlier on, a bit more live pressure, those dynamic defenders, 1v1 matchups, a bit more transition instead of this solo work. So look forward to that. Keep getting the edge, and we'll see you guys next week.